Joshua chapter 7 and 8 is a great story. When it came to Jericho, Joshua faced the captain of the army of hosts before he went in the night before. They brought the Ark of the Covenant around with them. They waited on God. They had God's plan. They saw God in their midst. They were very conscious as they attacked Jericho of their need for God to move if Jericho would fall. But God made one condition afterwards. The city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who are with her in her house shall be spared, because she hid the spies we sent. But keep away from the devoted things, so that you will not bring about your own destruction by taking any of them. Otherwise, you will make the camp of Israel liable to destruction and bring trouble on it. And he said, I want Jericho to be about me. What I do there, I want all the glory. What happens is, there was one person who didn't obey God's rule. One guy can ruin it for all. His name was Achan. And what happened with Achan is that they went in and he saw some Babylonian garments there, which would have been dedicated to the different spirits and their different religions. They also saw some silver there and about a wedge of gold. And he saw it and he coveted it and he took it for himself and he hid it. The power of secret sins is a very powerful thing. But then the story of what happens when they face this little town, this little outpost by the name of Ai. And they sent a bunch of guys to spy it out. And when they came back, they said, you shouldn't worry about Ai. It only has about 12,000 people. And not only is it only about 12,000 people, there weren't a lot of men in it. So if we send 2,000 or 3,000 soldiers up there, and the rest of us should be able to rest. Let's take it easy. You have to understand, Ai is up on the hill. And so when they go to attack Ai, the guys from Ai must have been sandbagging it, because they sent the Israelites afoot and they came running downhill 7 to 9 miles. And the Bible said, until they hit the stone quarries. And while they hit the stone quarries, they were probably so tired and so worn out that when they turned in there, Ai just pounced on them. After that happened, Joshua was just devastated. And this was the very first defeat that they ever had. And so what they say here, what God says in verse 18 and 19, and God said to them, I want you to keep devoted what is devoted to me. What is devoted and what is desired? Because this guy by the name of Achan saw Jericho's booty and said, that's what I want. I don't want to wait on God's terms. I want what I want on my terms. How many want to see the blessing of God in our district? How many want to see an outpouring of God? How many want to see great churches being raised up? How many understand that will happen only on God's terms? Devotion puts things on God's terms. But when we put things on our terms, it becomes what's desired. And that's the battle that goes on here when it comes to Ai. One great victory in Jericho does not mean the war is won. Just because they won in Jericho doesn't mean they have the power to win in Ai. Now that's hard to believe, because Ai was so much smaller than Jericho. Ai was so much more of an easier battle. But it's exactly what God is showing them here. First of all, They were self-confident because Ai was much smaller than Jericho. You see, the Holy Spirit is the greatest gift God could ever give to us. But the moment that we think it's about us is the moment we will become very dangerous and open to being defeated. Because the things of the Spirit were a gift from God, were meant to make us devoted. Now, the desires in our hearts go hand in hand with the idea of devotion. They failed to wait on God and to seek God. When they went to Ai, they said, no problem. We don't have to prepare. We could do this in our sleep. The Israelites had a great win in Jericho, but they had yet to be broken. The Shebarim means to be broken. You break down stone so that you put it in a shape that you could use it. Just because God does something in our midst doesn't mean that we're already broken and ready for God to use us. For it's only in the stone quarries that when we face the situations that they had to face, God had to bring them to a place that they were broken. You see, we're broken so that we can be used by God. That's a powerful picture. An unbroken vessel is not something that God can use easily. Someone that's unbroken and stayed and fixed and formed into their shape is their shape and their desires much more than God's shape. There is great power in our secret sins. There is great power in our desires. For you see, the word desire and God's will, the devotion, what God devotes to himself is for the will of God, so that he can do his will. And so what we find out is until our desires become God's desires, God's will not become our will. The Spirit only works in us when our desires become the things God desires. So that what I have in my will becomes God's will. So that I'm changed. So that I'm broken. So that I become more in a hunger for him. Because our desires can often stand in the way of God's will. And so God has to take us to the Ai's. Everyone in the Bible has an Ai. Paul supposedly was blind, and that was his Ai. Jonah, he wanted to die rather than to change, and so a whale became his Ai. David had his wants, and God sent Nathan, and David was broken at the place where Nathan said, "You are the man." And so what they faced is the issue never was Ai. It was the rock they were standing on. If we are not able to be broken by God and put into a usable shape, no matter what the Jerichos are, our life will never be used of God. Let me tell you, being healed doesn't make you usable by God. Having great ability doesn't make you usable by God. Now they help, and they sure are fun to go through. But being broken makes you usable by God. And God will bring you to an Ai. We seek and pray for the Jerichos. But it's in the Ai that we become usable by God.